We now invite the panelists of the final session of the day, Dr. Ramaraj, Professor Mohanasankar, and Professor Ashok. If you could please come over to the dais. So as they're taking their seats, I'll just quickly introduce the two panelists who are not yet known to you. Dr. Ramaraj. He's a serial entrepreneur who's been involved in ventures in IT, cellular, and internet. His last venture was SIFI, where he was the co-founder and the CEO. SIFI was the first Indian internet company from India to list on NASDAQ national market in the US. In 2010, the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, recognized him with a Lifetime Achievement Award for nurturing the spirit of entrepreneurship and inspiring and mentoring numerous entrepreneurs. Earlier, he was the senior advisor at Sequoia Capital, and currently he's the senior advisor at Elevar Equity. He's a board member of the IIT Madras Incubation Cell and IIM Calcutta.
Professor Mohanasankar is the faculty in the Department of Electrical Engineering at IIT Madras, and he heads the Healthcare Technology Innovation Center, which is situated here, and I hope most of you have visited the center yesterday, which is the leading medtech innovation and incubation ecosystem in the country as well. Dr. Mohan also acts as a mentor to many of our incubated medtech startups, and he's also the vice president of IIT Madras Research Park and an independent director on the board of Titan Company. So I request Professor Mohan, and Professor Ashok doesn't need introduction again. So Professor Mohan, if you can, yes, you can start the discussion.
Okay, hopefully most of you are still awake. So, I mean, there is a title here, it says, why startup valuation should be the only success metric for Tech Incubator. So I was actually arguing with Tama that, I want a change in the title. She didn't agree, but, I have the microphone now. So Tama, we are changing the title. In fact, I wanted to add another word there, saying commercial success and valuation. I mean, there are reasons why I say that, especially the current scenario. So, before we bring in Ramaraj and Jhun, I actually wanted to tell you, what incubators and startup meant to me in this 14 years of me being at IIT Madras. And, actually one of the first people I met at IIT Madras was Ravi and Umesh before I joined. Right? So this is this table in CSD, Electrical Engineering Building, and they were sitting there. And to me, IIT Madras is doing startups at that time. And RTBI had just begun, I believe, 2009 or 10, around that. I didn't know anything. 2006, RTBI was already on. So there you go. So it was already, Incubator was already on, even before you heard about Incubator. So that also tells you about something. So the kind of people I saw between 2006 to 2012, 2008 to 2000, were of a certain kind of people, entrepreneurs, who are like somewhat idealistic, if I may say. Most of us are when we want to start a venture. Then I saw the word incubator getting used. More 2011, 2012. So then I started to hear incubators, startups from policy and everything. Then I started to see a different kind of people, an addition kind of people coming into the ecosystem. When I meet the founders, they were a little bit different, which is, entrepreneurship as a career pathway. I heard that term and other things. And, India's entrepreneurship ecosystem was growing. Flipkart happened, right? I mean, that was actually a big thing. And after that, I saw a very different kind of people. People, and I'm being very open here, who did not know anything about business. I mean, nothing, no idea of business, even arithmetic of business, but saying, I want to do a startup. I mean, I'm not making a judgmental comment. The ecosystem had grown that way. And incubators, BIRAC was started in 2012, if you remember, 2012 March. And, money started coming into attracting entrepreneurs. It's a different word, which for the first time I saw. So the Ravi and the Umesh who I saw on a 50-year-old teak wood table. It's a different matter, the teak wood table is very valuable. But we're very different. I saw a very different kind of people from 2013, 14. Everybody was like, talking about. The incubators were growing and all that. And we actually ourselves set up a medtech incubator in 2016. Muthu is probably here somewhere. Late 2016, early 2017. And then suddenly I started seeing a proliferation of startups. In fact, when I talk to startups, what's your plan? So, no, I want to try this for 3 years. Nothing wrong with that. I was not making a judgmental comment at that time. Even now, I'm not making. Then there is one time I remember, I saw a startup, a 3-member team. They said, I handle technology, business. This person will handle awards. I can't remember where I met this person. I said, interesting. I asked him why. Saying, oh, it is actually important. So I saw a transition in this scheme. And remember, the denominator, we're all engineers and most of us understand that when denominator goes up, it's very important to take stock of quality and efficiency invariably. I mean, when denominator goes up, there's no way you can keep. So it's a very important conversation, according to me, what we need to have. And also now with the goals of the country, you see the Prime Minister saying 90,000 startups in the parliament. I mean, and we have our audacious goal. In this context, what should we define as a success metric? Very important. And we are playing, Ramaraj, a low percentage game. I mean, startups by definition are 1 to 2% successful. So it is in that context, I said yes to you. If this is something else, I would not. So that's why I said it should be both commercial success and valuation. So this is the preface, and I'm not giving you my summary comments. I wanted senior people here to say that. So this is the context with which I saw the evolution of incubators, and I truly believe we have to now define these metrics when the denominator is increasing, when the volume is increasing, and when there is scrutiny. And interest rates are increasing also, Ramaraj. Realize that, now, treasury bonds are at 5 to 6%, and you can already see the impact. Free, easy money has started to come down significantly. So I stop there and I invite, these two people need no introduction. One started the word incubator, one probably started a company without probably the term startups being there. So I invite Mr. Ramaraj, because you got into this game a little earlier. Right?
Yeah.
Please, sir. Your synopsis, what do you see?
So about 20 odd years ago, nobody wanted to be a business person. It wasn't considered good to be a business person. You're looked at with suspicion. And many of us were trying to see how to encourage people to become entrepreneurs. And I remember a gentleman called Kanmal Rekhi, one of the founders of TIE, who said it'll happen for 2 reasons. When a mother encourages her daughter to go and be an entrepreneur, be it in startup, not TCS, Infosys, etc., that is one. And that is what's happening today. Today, every parent is very proud to say, my son, my daughter is an entrepreneur, is in a startup. So I think in 20 years, that is the first major shift that has happened, which is family support and encouragement. One of the key things that determine an ecosystem is family support. Incubator is of course there. But without family support, this is hard infrastructure. You need the soft infrastructure, which is when you go to a family function, people shouldn't be shy to introduce you, saying, don't want to talk about what you do. So that I think was the first major change. The second is valuation. Unicorns caught the imagination of many of us. Unicorn is a mythical creature, don't forget. So it comes in dreams. So when you suddenly see 1 or 2 unicorns, you can say, hey, that could be me. That got the second, and I think the most powerful imagination. Which is why I think we have this title saying, is that the only metric for success? That is not true. There are different stages of success. I know very successful entrepreneurs who have said, this is enough. I serve a community, I serve a set of customers, I will do my best here. I'm not interested in taking VC funding beyond this. I'm not interested in going global. I'm not interested in solving everybody else's problem. Some of us who are investors think this is a comfort zone and we would like them to change and change gear. But that's where they are. And they're doing a phenomenal job. So our challenge, even as kids, is not happiness in what we do. It is looking at what, and that is because our parents have always compared our marks to the next kid's mark. So from there, we are under pressure to compare, and our happiness is dependent on our batchmate being slightly lower than us. So that, I think, is where the different degrees of success will come, is based on each individual. But for an incubator, we'll talk about that slowly. Over to you, Professor.
Before I comment on how do we evaluate, or what do we consider, what do we consider as a success matrix for incubator? When do we consider incubator is moving towards that? I'll start with a necessary condition. In fact, I was walking down along with Shruti, who had to leave, and she was sort of saying that there are now 150 incubators which have come here. How do we really figure out, how do we support them? What do we do? How do we ensure that they move towards success? And she said that, well, she has to get an answer because she has to, her higher-ups are going to ask this question, because this is going on that, yes, we have been incubating numbers, but so what? We have to start looking at what is making incubators successful or not. And she was saying, can you come up with something, or what can you do? Can you quickly come up with some formula? And of course, this was only from here going down on the lift to the ground floor. We had only so much time for conversation. I told her that I will look at only one thing. Whoever is in the incubator today, running the incubator, how much independence do they have to make decisions? How are those who are running the operations, are they taking the decision, or somebody else is coming, going and taking the decision? How much independence do they have? I said that is a critical thing for incubator to be successful. Because if an incubator is independent, if the people are empowered to take the decision and take things the direction that they think should be the right thing, we can always teach them. We can always handhold them and take them somewhere. If the people who are running the incubator, who are carrying out the operations, they are not empowered. If somebody else keeps on taking decision from outside by a phone call, by a this, then what can you do? Anything that you try to do, you are not going to get anywhere. So I think I'm changing the thing, but I'm asking that this is a necessary condition. And I told her, let us figure out of this 150 or 750 or whatever number of incubators are, how many incubators the people who are running the show are empowered. If the people are empowered, let us figure out how to work with them, the empowered people, get them to understand better, handhold them, support them in whichever manner to move towards success. Separate out those which are not empowered, where somebody is sitting somewhere else giving calls and say this should be done, because then no incubator will be successful. The reason I am mentioning that is this is the first and foremost. And I think we need to evolve this is a very general statement, empowerment, but I think we need to define a matrix that this is the real empowerment. I would say even the board members should play a limited role. They should play a role of governance, that there is nothing going wrong in the system. So sure, governance is certainly their role, and they certainly can look at performance judging, but day to day, they cannot, even the board member cannot interfere. Because they can give advice. But finally, the operation team has to carry it out. Now, I'm putting that from the starting point. If this is there, then where do you take it to the successful? Sure, you like, now, no, if you are incubating 30 companies or 10 companies or 100 companies, numbers does not matter. There will be always mix. Of course, maybe 10%, maybe 5, 10, maybe 15% will be extremely successful. They will really generate the large value. The next 10 to 15, I have for ourselves put, saying that they will give me in the beginning when I buy a 10 rupees share, whatever, they will give me 10,000 rupees return. In fact, the minister was asking me, what does it really mean? So I say, if I buy a 10 rupees share, I say, well, it becomes a 1 lakh rupee share. That is extremely successful. Probably 5%, 10%, 15%. And I think it's important. If we can get some, it lifts up the whole mood. Then another 10-15% may give me 1,000 times return. Well, the value will be 10,000. Another will be giving 1,000 times. Another set of people survive and give me between 2 to 20, 2 to 25, which is also fine. There's nothing wrong. And I think they employ, they run, they become a business, viable business is all good. The numbers will come from the ones which will give you a 10,000 times and 1,000 times return. You need to have that spread. You should aim to get some there at 10,000 times return. 10 rupees share becoming a lakh rupees. That's a kind of number that if we keep in mind, and it may take time, don't be in a hurry, that's all right. And then that spread can be there. The rest will fail. Whatever number will fail, will fail. 30%, 40%, 50%, even 60%. We should try to limit that to some number. It can't be 90%. That 95%, that will not work anywhere. Sure, I think one thing that I agree from what Mohanasankar says, that don't get caught into this temporary valuation which is there and overnight will collapse because somebody put in money but then collapse. Don't get into that. It has to be a long-term value. So from that point of view, I totally agree that if there is no commercial success, if you are not breaking even after so many years, if you are not making money, finally the value is all temporary. The hype will not go anywhere. Why I think these kind of questions are being asked? Because all kinds of other things are being put in very often. Number of people that you employ. Now, as long as you can get grant money, you can employ people. If you can get CSR money, you can employ people. But is that the purpose of a incubated company? To take a grant money or CSR money, and that's a different ball game. That's not the purpose of incubator. Huh? Then they say, well, of course, revenue, as I said, is important. So generally, I will sort of say, yes, incubator must be independent, continuously learning. It doesn't matter if today it is not successful. Nobody can be successful. I mean, what you are seeing today are actually RTBI started in 2006. Huh? 6. It has taken 16 years. Much of the value that you see comes from the companies incubated around that time. Huh? So, I think it takes time, the numbers. As long as you are independent, continuous learning, a reasonably stable leadership, stable people, moving in the right direction, I think rest can actually be done. I want to again once emphasize one more thing which I did in the morning. I strongly believe that the incubation manager should realize that incubator is also like a startup. I dislike the fact that some incubators set up with people are paid so high and they come in and do something and then they run away, leaving a hole in. I think I'm perfectly all right for the people to grow with the incubator. If they are very highly paid and the rest of the people are not even getting 10,000 rupees, I don't think that the whole situation is sustainable. And if they are starting to take decisions on behalf of the company, I think they should grow. We should figure out a way that the long-term, those who work in long-term with the incubator get a percentage of the value created in the incubator. That, we haven't done it yet. We have talked about it. But that somehow we need to bring it. And it also is like a startup. I think if we keep these things in mind, yes, the numbers can actually be done.
Yes. Yeah. So, Mr. Ramaraj, I'll come to you. So Ashok has put the structural aspects of how an incubator, which is important because without structural aspect, we are not going to make the functional aspect successful. Since you serve, I mean, you've been with us for now, so long, how do we translate these larger goals, and you can add to them, in terms of its operations and its relationships with the startups? Because finally the startups have to be successful for the incubator to be successful. Can you zoom in on that and get into the operational and the parameters with which we incubate the startups, give money, do we encourage them or do we scold them? Those things eventually will come, which part of the role that you have played as the investment committee. So can you?
I think for an incubator, what an incubator can do, I think there are 5 measures of success. The first one is when an incubator comes, a founder comes, or a team comes, they have an idea. They have maybe an element of a problem to solve. But that's about it. It is inward looking. It is more about creating the right app or product or prototype. The first thing that the incubator should do is to make them customer-centric. For whom is this problem being solved? How are they meeting that need today? Will it be cheaper? So customer-centric is something most of our founders do not have when they first come into the incubator. So I would think the first thing that we can do to help succeed is customer centricity. The second is, we think that because we have an idea, the world will wait. And as and when we get something ready, there will be a long line waiting. So bias for action. how quickly can we take it to the market? So I would think the second thing is bias for action. That is again something we need to encourage. Like you said, independence, etc., might help create a bias for action at the incubator, but incubatee needs to have the same thing. The third is unit economics. We all keep looking at people are burning money. I think the previous session, Puneet was talking about if you have money, don't burn it. At the same time, use it. Unit economics means that when I sell a product or an additional product, I'm not losing money. With what I have, I can then decide to invest it in marketing, in talent, in anything. But for every product that I sell, fundamentally, I'm not even meeting the bill of material. Then I'm in deep trouble. So unit economics, the fundamentals of that, I think is what we need to help them understand. The fourth, I would think, is how to work with a team. Where do I find the talent? Why should somebody come and work for me? What is that passion that has brought me here? Can I share that passion? So that is first to attract. How do I work? Most of the time, we get a batchmate, hostel room, brother, sister, somebody to come and join without looking at complementary skills. I am very good at technology. I need somebody to go to market, somebody who understands marketing. So that complementarity, and how on earth do I work with such a person? How do I get the best of each other? So that I think is the fourth. And fifth is, we all talk about capital. Many of the companies don't know how to absorb capital. They don't even know how to use it, what is right. Should it be equity? Should it be debt? Many a time at the investment committee, we stagger giving money. We stagger giving money so that the company has the ability to absorb it and use it for the purpose for which we think it needs to be. All of us have seen too much capital is part of the problem today. Why there is little capital even for good things. So, do we have our companies, our incubatees, do they need working capital? Do they need a grant? Do they need equity? And in what doses? So we should help them train to learn how to absorb capital. Right? So the whole thing is the Ganges landing on Shiva's head and being slowly let out is picturesquely that part of it. So, mythology.
So
we can open it up now.
yeah, so I think we have reasonably summarized it. Why don't we actually get the incubators, incubator managers, other people to have a discussion.
Different point of view, different ways of how do we really do the performance measurement and what are the musts for the incubator.
We can slightly change the title. What all should be the success metrics? So this is a leading question, right? So, but we can
Valuation
actually,
is one, of course.
valuation is one of them.
Which happens quite a few, like you said, it's a long journey.
Yeah, we can open it out and you have to watch the time. I don't know the time.
Yes.
Please pass. Mike, please.
It's on.
Morning itself, I wanted to ask you, sir. Now I'll ask three of them. Actually, I work as CEO for an agri-based incubator. Like it is Agricultural Development Trust, established in 1971. Since they are serving in agriculture sector, started by Sharad Pawarji. And now we are having an incubation center, and I work as CEO for that. So basically what we do, we have supported, till now we have supported all the agri-based startup because we can give best in that field only. So we are trying to support them only, and they are mostly rural startup. So the problem here is कि we face funding from VC. Because some of the startups are really small startups, medium scale startups, but they are doing good in market. We can't say that they are not successful because on the small scale, on the medium scale, they are doing really good in the market. But the problem comes when it comes to VC or investment. They don't want to invest in their startup. So they have to go for some grant or some scheme, or we give them the support in that. So I need to ask you, sir, what should we do? Means they are successful only, we call them successful graduated startup only. But what about the VC funding?
Yeah, I mean, he will answer better, but I will just sort of say that we need to understand that debt is an important component of investment. Depending on what they do, I mean, I don't want to make a general comment. Depending on what they do, they may need more debt. Huh? They may need small venture fund, investment, more debt. And I think we need to really look at how do you make low-cost debt available? Because unfortunately, in the open market, debt costs can be 30%, 35% in rural areas, 35%. In fact, one of the key things that Caladofin tries to do in the previous is to try to see how do you get debt available to a person who is working in rural areas, a small shop, small anything. How do you really make for a micro business? How do you create debt? And I think that could be a key consideration.
I just have one qualifier, not to him though. See, if you're running an incubator and if your category is not getting any VC funding, that's, I mean, I don't think agri-tech is that. In fact, agri-tech is actually, I don't know the exact numbers, but I vaguely remember probably about few $100 million have been attracted to venture capital and less than Series C, so which means it's not really quasi-PE earlier. If your startups are not getting any VC funding, but the category is getting VC funding, that's a question which you have to ask yourself and the startups. No. So I'll complete the second part. Not all startups, not incubators, not all incubators, I dare say, can or should be successful. So the fundamental, in fact, I slightly probably will qualify what Jun said. The numbers of, startups that are successful, I mean, of course, IIT Madras has a strongly biased number because, it has really done well. You should probably look at, what is the typical number of startups over a 2 to 3 year incubation period that come out, and you can define the success rate. So your goal should not be win. Then you're making the VC thing like a grant. Then you're just force feeding this company with capital, while probably for various other reasons, it is not fit enough to absorb capital. So you should be very careful not to make sure that VC funding is somehow available to every startup. In agri-tech, there is venture capital available, but I agree with the debt part because many of our companies, and this is an intuitive feeling I'm getting over a period of time, is they need debt capital, especially these kind of companies and agri. So I think you have to look at that from a purely, the moment you talk about money, you have to talk about money. Right? The VCs are not putting in money, anything other than, because they're raising that from their LPs for a successful return. So the incubator's job, Ramaraj, is also, especially domain-specific incubators, to make sure that they are in reasonable equilibrium with the market. It cannot be that I'm doing an incubator, for some reason my companies are not getting funded. I mean, that's not how the market works anyways. If you want to add anything to that, please.
I think you should not expect all will get VC funding. That's the starting point. Success is what I started by saying. Our definition of success should not be unicorn. Each of us has a certain market size that we go after, a certain capital we can absorb, a certain amount of team size to do, maybe a geography to work in. Some of it can be addressed from your incubator money itself, along with debt. The problem comes is, this company sitting on my left has got VC funding, it's got private equity funding, I've got nothing. That is not the motivation. That should not be your success metric. I think, is this solving a problem at a certain size and scale with which it started? Meeting its potential for which it started. VCs, once they come in at a certain size and a certain expectation of return, and most important is a certain timeline to get it. They will not wait, which means there's pressure on the company to provide them exit, not serve the customer. So therefore, we need to be careful taking companies to venture capitalists unless they are ready to be able to provide an exit. So I think there are different ways in which you can capitalize them to meet their potential.
So the gentleman in the blue shirt, somebody wanted, sorry, I lost the person. Here's another question.
This is Bonnie from SSN Incubation Foundation. So we are speaking about valuations. When Flipkart was acquired by Walmart, there was a lot of buzz about valuation and startups were chasing valuations. And when Paytm offered their IPO, and that was not as expected, and more focus was on profitability. So what should startups focus, valuations or profitability, especially at the early stage?
We'll let Ramaraj, because he has done both. You can answer that and then we can qualify some second order.
I said that one of your success metrics should be unit economics. So fundamental profitability is a must. You may use that money that you get, the contribution from that unit economics, for getting new customers, pay for CAC, pay for marketing, pay for team, but that's discretionary spend. But fundamentally, if the company's unit economics is not okay, you will not get an infinite amount of money, as all these companies have now realized. There is 1 in a lakh that has got money like that. What about the rest of them? So it was called exuberance, irrational exuberance. There's no logic to some of that. It was just riding a tide, a momentum. If we take that as fundamental, then we are setting wrong expectations. It is opportunistic. I'm not saying if it is opportunistic, don't take. If you get a valuation of $1 billion, take it. That's not what I'm saying. Don't build for it. Build for the customer, build for value, build for profitability. Valuation will come if you're unique and you can scale profitably. Profitability has to be inherent in the company.
Thank you, sir.
I ran an internet company.
Is there,
Okay, so I am still saying profitability has to be there.
is there any other comment, question?
One question.
Hello, sir. This is Naveen from JSS STEP. So, before joining my current organization, I was working in a Bionest Incubation Center as CEO. So, we had a very unique problem. I want to hear your comments on this. So, one of our startups, a couple of them actually, got funded. We mentored them. They entered the market, and then COVID came. They pivoted their projects, and they rode the COVID wave really high. Got crores of revenue, and they were doing really good. But then, due to some bad business decisions, they failed. So, coming to that particular success metric for Tech Incubators, will it be a failure from our side, or it is failure of that startup person? So, because when they graduated from us, they were successful. They were earning big money, but then they failed.
Are you a parent or an incubator? That is what you have to decide. So once you're out, see, if you had an equity in it and you got some money out of it, that would have been fantastic. I'm saying we need to know when they have graduated and they've gone. Thereafter, it is bragging rights that we are looking for as the incubator. We incubated Flipkart or something like that, which continues to be successful. Please understand that for every one success, there are 9 failures. Looking optimistically, it's 99 failures maybe. So I'm saying, don't take it as your personal failure of the incubator. Learn from it. Actually, failed entrepreneurs can actually help and mentor some of your incubatees on what to learn from it. And that could be very valuable lesson. Sorry.
Yeah, this is where, I'm using the IITMRP as example because, we have this basic numbers we put up, this many companies incubated, this is the revenue, this is the money we have raised, this is the exit we have had. I think if you put those real numbers, these are absolute numbers, I think then I don't think there will be any confusion on whether, on a particular company, whether you are successful or not. It is very clear because each of them are cumulatively contributing to this matrix which, Ashok was talking about. But I think that matrix, so maybe this is a problem back to you, sir. Some kind of very, very simple metrics like revenue, money raised, employment, whatever it is, very, very simple, is probably something that the entire country incubate, because there are not thousands of incubators, no? There are probably hundreds of incubators, I'm guessing, 200, 300 incubators. I think we should start from there. We should get a basic sense of what passes through these incubators and what are they generating. And this is actually, you can't really go wrong with these numbers because these are real numbers. So maybe that is a project for you. One more.
Yeah, but as the number of questions are kind of not that many, I want to go back to, since most of you run the incubators, almost all of you, how many of you think that you are sufficiently empowered? Do you want to comment on that?
No.
Yes. Can you
Yeah,
take
use
the
the
mic?
mic.
Comment.
Yes, this is Sanjay Murvi from SIBA, Center for Incubation and Business Acceleration, Goa. And as you mentioned, sir, we are empowered to take the decisions because we have got good management who supports us, right? And I actually want to share another viewpoint in terms of what, success metric we can use for any incubator. So there are various KPIs that we can use: revenue, valuation, number of startups, number of products, patents, and all those stuff, right? But the $1 million question today in the startup ecosystem, incubators ecosystem, is how to sustain or how to be sustainable post your funding period which you receive from the government, right? So that's the $1 million question, and many of our incubators are being able to solve that. I have CII, IIM Ahmedabad, this very own, very Incubate IIT Madras is another excellent example of it, right? Sign, another example. So I believe, right, if you are able to run your incubator, do your job post your funding period, right? I think that's what a successful incubator looks like.
I think the excellent point that you made.
Yes.
In fact, that's the first requirement that and that can happen only if you have some shares in the company and you get some exits, which again comes back to the value. So you need some initial funding can happen. In fact, actually today funding is very large. Earlier the funding used to be very small. As far as I remember, I think we started with some 30 lakhs rupees or close 30 lakhs rupees. This is the kind of funding that we had got. We're very happy with that. That's all. Beyond that, we pretty much managed. So I think this is the crucial part. Whereas many incubators are keeping on looking for more and more and more money. And which means fundamentally they seem to have made some mistakes. And of course, one can do reset and start looking at it again. But yes, I think very important point is how can you sustain yourself? Maybe you don't pay for infrastructure, but at least otherwise you should be able to sustain yourself.
Yeah, somebody else wanted to, had another hand before that.
I think it's coming towards the end of the day. I don't think that there are too many more questions. Most people have to actually leave. Maybe I think we can say something in conclusion and we can try to wind it up. Or start with maybe Mohan and then Ramaraj.
No, I think my conclusion or summation is actually in one way a commentary of the incubator ecosystem in the country. I think there is enough incubators. In fact, if you ask me, probably there is a little bit too many incubators in terms of numbers, if you look at it. I have my reason for saying that, which essentially means and more startups starting up. I think the success metric will anyway be demanded upon from the incubators. So the better we prepare, it is better for the incubator ecosystem and the overall startup ecosystem. That's all I wanted to say.
So research has shown that, and I'm sure all of you know this, that the probability of success of an incubatee is almost 87% higher when they come out of an incubator, which means you're actually providing an enabling environment for success. And therefore, for you to continue and be sustainable is how I think the entrepreneurship will continue in this country. And I think it's an extremely valid point, and you have to find a way to take equity in the startups. That is your long-term sustainability. And that legally or otherwise we have to lobby to make sure every incubator can take that, and then hope that that will keep us going. This is
your remarks, final.
So what I will do is that I will say a few things and also try to conclude because I think it's getting late. I think we have learned many things. One of the important point we used to say very often that when you sell a product, is there a margin? That's what we often used to talk about. Basically, the term unit economics is a better term. And essentially saying the same thing, that if you are selling something, at least is there, what is the unit economics? You can even project that the unit economics will change as the numbers go up, but you need to have very, very good understanding of unit economics or basically margin from any product or services that you offer. I think that's something that we need to watch out, and we need to teach every incubatee to do that. Other than that, I think very important point that he made that yes, a lot of funding has come. In fact, very generous funding has come. When we started in 2003, 2004, we didn't expect so much. And over years, the money has kept on coming and coming from different sources, and one can actually get it from 4 different sources. Fortunately, CSR pipe is also open now. That also is giving us money. So money per se is not a problem. Enthusiasm, things have changed. As Ramaraj sir told in the beginning, I remember, I told you yesterday that we used to be asked questions that are you a place where Saraswati is worshipped or Lakshmi? And probably if a youngster would say that I'm going to do a startup, certainly if the youngster is in marriage market in 1995, 96, nobody will not find easily a spouse. All that has changed. There is a lot of enthusiasm. There is interest. I don't know whether how far it is there in tier 2, tier 3 towns, but certainly in the cities it is very strong. But in tier 2, tier 3 also it is getting there. We have done this job. We need to worry about its governance, the independence of incubators and all that, and I pointed that out. I think that's what we have to do. We have to learn a lot, not depend on only on the money that is coming in from the government. We need to work hard. I think one of the big mistakes that we make is how many incubatees, how many startups do we have? I think that number has no meaning. We need to have 75 incubatees, and then all that is just driving things crazy. We need to worry about, even if a few, can we move it towards success? Move it towards success. Good unit economics, good valuation will automatically come. If you are profitable, valuation will come. I mean, that's not a... And if you are working in social sector and all the things, you have to look. The right mix of debt and capital, I think, is very critical. We don't fully understand. We need to teach our incubators. My feeling is we are willing to help work with you as long as you are going to be a decision maker and very clear that you will make things, you are totally committed to make things successful. That's what we want to do. What I want to also point out that I did not know Startup India well, though it was actually formed when I was in Delhi, and I did attend one or two meetings, but people were initially moving with rapid speed to do Startup India. Somehow I felt they did not have the very good understanding of startups, and therefore I kind of stayed away. I could have got more in. Maybe I should have. I was working with Piyush and could have easily gone there, but did not. I was tied up in electric vehicles and renewable energy, and that's what was the focus. And after that, I didn't have too much interaction, though occasionally some interaction. But I think yesterday and today, I actually found out that this is the best startup team. It's a very, very good team. The Startup India is very serious about trying to make things and not go after hype. Many others are kind of like Department of Science and Technology. Okay, its purpose is something else. It has set up something with some understanding. It's doing a few things, but really not the way. I'll say the same thing with Niti Aayog, the Atal. Something is going on. I'll say the same thing with BIRAC. I mean, I was on the board of BIRAC for 6 years. Yes, it has encouraged a lot. The big scheme, etc., is very good. But I think really nurturing startups, the Startup India seems to be very, very serious and can become a very, very good bridge between the government and the incubators. And I think we need to work together. It is possible to, after meeting and talking to a lot of people, it is possible for us to really, over the next 3 to 5 years, as long as we stay away from numbers, as long as we see that real independence is given to the incubators, as long as we see that there is a real striving to become economically viable, taking a little bit of percentage of equity right in the beginning, I think it is possible for us to scale up and make it something very, very successful. And with that hope and our commitment to work with your team and work with all of you, thank you very much for coming. Do you want to add something in the conclusion? Tama, Jaya, why don't you come just say whatever you want to say, even if nothing else. Thank you. Tama, you come also. Shruti? Not Shruti, sorry. Asta. And maybe we'll wind up. And you can come upstairs. Tama, Jaya, come. They are the one who are organized. Shruti, Asta. And Tama, Jaya.
No, I just wanted to thank you to your entire team, sir, for these 2 days were very, very full of enthusiasm, motivation, and inspiration. The startup showcase with over 100 founders and the products that we all saw was very, very inspiring. And right from all the smaller details that you have taken care of to the ice-breaking session, the fun element, to the sessions that were very well curated. We have learned a lot. I hope the incubators here have learned a lot. I think the learnings that we're taking back is that one, we will be bringing you all closer together through the mailing list, through a group, so that the network continues and we don't lose the momentum here. We will be reaching out to you with further support through the Incubator network at the Startup India page. We will be looking forward to all your suggestions that came this morning in terms of regulatory reforms, in terms of scheme changes that you're looking forward to, so that we can put it up. But thank you all for traveling from all across India to be a part of this 1.5-day workshop. And thank you, Professor Jaya, Tama, Charles, Karthik, and everyone in your team for beautifully organizing this.
Let's give a big clapping to the startup industry.
Suyash, Diksha,